It was a normal afternoon when Angela decided to visit the local supermarket. She had just finished a busy day at work and needed to pick up a few things for dinner. The weather was warm, and the streets were filled with people rushing around, finishing their tasks before the evening. Angela walked into the supermarket, her mind on the grocery list she had made earlier. As she entered the store, she was greeted by the familiar smells of fresh bread and fruits. The soft hum of the lights above and the quiet chatter of other customers created a calm atmosphere. Angela knew exactly what she needed and made her way through the aisles, picking up the ingredients for her meal. She felt relaxed, enjoying the simplicity of her errand. But as she walked past the shelves, something felt off. She noticed a man watching her from the corner of the store. It was the manager, Tom, standing with his arms crossed near the produce section. At first, Angela thought nothing of it. He was just doing his job after all. But as she turned to grab a bag of carrots, she saw his eyes follow her movements. She felt a small chill run down her spine. Angela didn't think much of it at first. Maybe it was just her imagination. She continued shopping, picking out vegetables, some chicken, and a loaf of bread. As she approached the checkout, she felt Tom's gaze on her again. His eyes never left her as she placed her items on the conveyor belt. She glanced at him, but quickly looked away, trying to ignore the uncomfortable feeling in her stomach. When it was finally her turn to pay, Angela smiled politely at the cashier, but Tom was standing nearby, watching everything closely. As the cashier scanned her items, Tom suddenly stepped forward, his face serious. "Excuse me," he said loudly, drawing attention from other customers. "I need to check your bags." Angela froze. She thought it was a mistake. "What do you mean?" she asked, feeling a tightness in her chest. "I've already paid for everything." Tom didn't seem to care. He gestured for the cashier to stop scanning. "I need to check your bag, Mom," he repeated, his voice a little harsher now. Angela could feel the eyes of the other customers on her, and her heart started to race. She opened her bag, feeling embarrassed, but there was nothing unusual inside. Her phone, keys, and a wallet. That was all. "I didn't steal anything," Angela said, trying to stay calm. She could feel the sweat on her palms as she looked at Tom, hoping this was some kind of misunderstanding. But Tom wasn't listening. He started to go through her bag, looking through each item with a suspicious eye. Angela's frustration grew. "This is ridiculous," she muttered under her breath. She had always been a loyal customer. Never had she been treated like this before. The cashier looked awkwardly at both of them, clearly uncomfortable with the situation. She was about to say something when Tom interrupted. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave the store." His tone left no room for argument. Angela's face burned with embarrassment. She looked around at the other customers who were now staring at her, judging her. She had done nothing wrong, but here she was, humiliated in front of everyone. With a deep sigh, she grabbed her items and left the store, her head held low. She couldn't believe what had just happened. As Angela walked out of the supermarket, her mind was racing. She had been accused of something she didn't do, and no one had even bothered to listen to her side of the story. It wasn't just the embarrassment, it was the injustice. Why had Tom singled her out? What had she done to deserve such treatment? She couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong, and she knew she wouldn't let it go. That day, Angela decided she wasn't going to just forget about it. This wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Angela couldn't stop thinking about the incident at the supermarket. It replayed in her mind over and over again, each time making her feel angrier and more humiliated. She had done nothing wrong, but she had been treated like a criminal. Every time she thought about the way Tom had accused her, a wave of frustration swept over her. She had never felt so disrespected in her life. That night, Angela tried to push the experience out of her mind as she sat down for dinner, but the injustice kept creeping back in. Her husband, Mark, noticed her quiet mood. "What's wrong?" he asked, concern in his voice. Angela hesitated for a moment before telling him everything that had happened at the supermarket. She didn't hold back, explaining how Tom had accused her of stealing and how she was humiliated in front of everyone. Mark was upset too, but he was also practical. "Maybe you should just let it go," he suggested. "It's not worth the stress." But Angela couldn't. She wasn't the type to sit back and accept unfair treatment. She felt a fire in her chest, a burning desire for justice. She knew she had to do something, but she wasn't sure what. Over the next few days, Angela began to think about her options. She could file a complaint, but she wasn't sure if that would make any difference. After all, Tom was just a manager at the store. Would anyone even listen to her? She didn't want to just be another person with a story no one cared about. She wanted to make sure this didn't happen again, not just to her, but to anyone else who had been unfairly treated. Angela started doing some research. She looked into the supermarket's ownership and learned that it was part of a chain of stores that was struggling financially. She also discovered that the store's manager, Tom, had a history of complaints from both customers and employees. His behavior was starting to seem like part of a bigger pattern. Angela wondered how many other people had been treated unfairly by him. It wasn't just her situation. It was something deeper. One evening, after a long day of research, Angela sat down with Mark. "I think I've found a way to fix this," she said, her voice determined. Mark looked at her, curious. "What do you mean?" "I'm going to buy the store," she replied, a bold look in her eyes. Mark stared at her for a moment, not sure if she was joking. "Buy the store? How would you even do that?" Angela smiled. "I've been looking into it. The store's owner is willing to sell, and I think I can make it happen. It won't be easy, but it's the only way to make real change." Mark was quiet for a moment. "But what about Tom? What will happen to him?" "I'm going to fire him," Angela said firmly. "He doesn't deserve to be in charge of anything. No one should have to go through what I did." Mark wasn't sure what to say, but he could see the determination in Angela's eyes. She wasn't backing down. She had a plan, and nothing was going to stop her. The next few weeks were filled with phone calls, meetings, and endless paperwork. Angela worked tirelessly, determined to make her dream of owning the store a reality. She had to put her personal feelings aside and focus on the business side of things. She knew it wasn't going to be easy, but the thought of taking control of the situation kept her going. Finally, after weeks of hard work, Angela got the news she had been waiting for. The deal was done. She was the new owner of the supermarket. She had taken control of the situation in a way no one expected. Now, it was time to take the next step, to make sure that no one would ever be treated the way she had been again. Angela felt a sense of accomplishment, but she also knew the hard part was just beginning. The real work was about to start. After buying the supermarket, Angela felt a mix of excitement and nerves. She had achieved what many thought was impossible, but she knew this was just the beginning of her journey. She had always believed in fairness, and now she had the power to make sure everyone was treated right, including herself. Angela started spending more time researching the supermarket's past. She was determined to understand how the store had fallen into such bad shape and why it had allowed a manager like Tom to stay in charge. As she looked through records and financial documents, she discovered that the supermarket was struggling financially. Sales had been declining for months, and the company had been forced to cut costs in many areas. But what really shocked Angela was the number of complaints that had been made about Tom's behavior. As she dug deeper, Angela found reports from customers and employees who had claimed that Tom had treated them unfairly, especially people of color. Some customers had even accused him of being rude and condescending. Angela felt a growing sense of anger as she read these reports. It wasn't just her who had been wronged. There were many others who had faced the same kind of treatment. She also found out that Tom had been working at the supermarket for years, and despite all the complaints, no one had ever done anything about it. Angela couldn't believe what she was reading. How could a store continue to let someone like him run things? It was clear to her now that Tom had been allowed to behave this way for far too long. Angela wasn't surprised to learn that the owner of the supermarket chain had been unaware of the issues. The company had been focused on keeping costs down and making a profit, but they had ignored the most important thing: the people who worked there and the customers who shopped there. Angela knew she had to change all of that. One evening, after a long day of sifting through documents and reports, Angela sat down with her trusted friend and lawyer, Karen. Karen had been helping her throughout the process, giving advice and making sure everything was legal. Angela shared the shocking details of what she had uncovered about Tom. "Karen, I can't believe what I found," Angela said, shaking her head. "It's like Tom was given a free pass to do whatever he wanted. People have been complaining about him for years, but no one did anything. It's unbelievable." Karen listened carefully, nodding in agreement. "This is exactly why you're doing the right thing, Angela. You've seen the truth now. You have the power to make a real difference here." Angela felt a sense of determination growing inside her. She knew she had to do more than just fire Tom. She had to rebuild the supermarket into a place where employees and customers felt respected and valued. She wanted the store to be a model of fairness and equality. "I can't just let this go," Angela said. "I'm going to make sure the store is a place where people feel welcome and treated with respect. It's time for change." The next step was clear. Angela had to confront Tom. She knew it wouldn't be easy, but she was ready. She had already decided that he would be fired, and no one was going to stop her from doing what was right. The more she thought about it, the more confident she became. She wasn't just doing this for herself. She was doing it for everyone who had been mistreated. Angela knew the road ahead would be difficult. She had a lot of work to do to turn the store around. But with each new piece of information she uncovered, her resolve grew stronger. She had the power to make things right, and she was determined to use it. Angela had made a decision, and there was no turning back. After weeks of research and careful planning, she was now the owner of the supermarket. It wasn't just about the money or the property. It was about control. It was about showing that she could take charge of her life and change the things that had hurt her. Tom's unfair behavior had ignited a fire in her that couldn't be extinguished, and now she had the power to make sure no one would face the same treatment she had. The process had taken longer than Angela expected. There were meetings, paperwork, and negotiations that tested her patience and resolve. But when she finally got the call that the deal was done, she couldn't contain her excitement. She had done it. She was the new owner of the supermarket, and she felt proud. The first thing Angela did after the deal was signed was take a walk through the store. As she stepped through the automatic doors, she couldn't help but notice how quiet it was. The shelves were stocked, and the aisles were lined with neatly arranged goods, but something was missing. There was no warmth, no sense of welcoming. Angela knew she could change that. Her first goal was simple: to make sure the store was a place where customers and employees felt respected. She wanted to create an environment where everyone felt valued, no matter their background or status. She wanted to make it a store that people would be proud to shop in. But there was one big hurdle before she could move forward: Tom. Angela couldn't ignore what had happened. Tom's behavior had been completely unacceptable. His treatment of her had been bad enough, but the more she learned about his past actions, the more she realized that he had caused harm to many others. He had created an atmosphere of distrust and fear among both the employees and the customers. Angela knew she couldn't let that continue. As the new owner, she had the power to make a change, and she wasn't going to waste it. She scheduled a meeting with Tom the very next day. Angela knew it was going to be a tough conversation. She wasn't sure how he would react, but she was prepared for anything. When she walked into his office, Tom looked up from his desk with a surprised expression on his face. He hadn't expected her to show up so soon, let alone for a serious conversation. "Tom," Angela began, her voice steady but firm, "I've been reviewing the store's records and some of the complaints made against you. I've also heard from several employees and customers who have shared their concerns. I've come to a decision." Tom's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. "What decision?" he asked, trying to keep his cool, though his voice shook slightly. "I'm firing you," Angela said plainly. "Your behavior as manager is not acceptable, and I cannot allow you to continue working here." Tom stood up from his desk, visibly shocked. "You can't do this. I've worked here for years. You don't know anything about running this place." "I know enough to recognize when someone is causing harm," Angela replied calmly. "And I won't let that continue. You're done here." There was a long silence. Tom stared at Angela, disbelief and anger swirling in his eyes. But Angela didn't flinch. She had made up her mind, and she wasn't backing down. "You can collect your things and leave now," Angela added. "I'll have your final paycheck ready for you." Tom opened his mouth to say something, but Angela didn't let him. "There's nothing more to discuss," she said, turning and walking out of his office. As she walked through the store, Angela felt a sense of relief. It wasn't easy to make this decision, but she knew it was the right one. Tom had treated her unfairly, and she wasn't going to let him get away with it. This was her chance to make a real difference, and she wasn't going to waste it. The next chapter of Angela's journey had begun, and she was ready to make the supermarket a better place for everyone. The day after Angela fired Tom, she felt a mix of emotions. There was relief, of course, but also a sense of responsibility. She knew that firing Tom was just one step in a much bigger journey. Now that she owned the store, it was up to her to rebuild it, not just in terms of business, but also the way it treated its employees and customers. She was determined to make this place different. No one would have to face the kind of humiliation she had endured ever again. That morning, Angela walked through the supermarket with a new sense of purpose. The store looked the same, but to her, it felt completely different. She was no longer a shopper. She was the boss. She knew that the employees had been nervous under Tom's rule, afraid of speaking up or sharing their concerns. But Angela had a different approach. She wanted them to feel safe, respected, and heard. It was time to make changes. When Angela reached the break room, she saw a few of the employees gathered around the table, whispering quietly to each other. They looked up when she entered, and there was a brief, awkward silence. Angela smiled, trying to ease the tension. "Good morning, everyone," she said cheerfully. "I'm Angela, the new owner. I know this may feel a little strange right now, but I want you to know that things are going to be different around here." The employees looked at each other, unsure of what to say. Angela could see the uncertainty in their eyes. They had been used to a manager who didn't listen to them, who had made them feel small and unimportant. But Angela wasn't like that. She had always believed in treating people with kindness and respect, and she was determined to create a workplace where everyone felt that way. "I know it's been tough under the old management," Angela continued, "but I want to hear from you. What do you need? What can I do to make this a better place to work?" There was a pause, and then one of the employees, Sarah, spoke up. "Well, for starters, it would be nice to have more respect. Tom, he never listened to us. He was always so harsh." Angela nodded, understanding exactly what Sarah meant. "I promise I will listen to you," she said. "I will treat you all with respect. If there are any concerns, don't hesitate to come to me. Together, we can make this place better." The other employees began to nod, some of them even smiling for the first time in a long while. Angela could tell they were beginning to trust her, and that made her feel hopeful. But she knew it wasn't enough just to make promises. She had to prove herself through her actions. Later that day, Angela called a meeting with the department heads. She wanted to make sure everyone was on the same page. "We're going to be more customer-focused," Angela told them. "Our goal is to create an atmosphere where customers feel welcome and valued. We'll do this by treating them with respect, being friendly, and always offering the best service." The department heads agreed enthusiastically, and Angela could already see the change starting to take place. She knew it wouldn't be easy to undo the damage that had been done under Tom's leadership, but she was determined to make it happen. Every small step, every positive change would bring her closer to the vision she had for the store. As the day went on, Angela walked around the store, checking on things and speaking with employees. She noticed that people were beginning to smile more, and the atmosphere felt lighter. It was as if a weight had been lifted. Angela knew that change wasn't going to happen overnight, but she was making progress, and that was what mattered. When the workday ended, Angela stood outside the store and took a deep breath. She had a long road ahead of her, but she was ready. She had taken control of her own destiny, and now she was determined to make this supermarket a place where everyone, employees and customers alike, felt like they belonged. The days after Angela's decision to fire Tom were filled with both excitement and challenges. The store was slowly starting to feel more positive. Employees were speaking more freely, and customers were noticing the changes. But not everyone was happy with what had happened. Tom, the former manager, was not going to accept his firing quietly. Angela had expected some pushback, but she didn't realize just how much Tom would fight to keep his position. She had hoped he would walk away and move on. But instead, Tom began telling anyone who would listen that he had been wronged. He talked to old colleagues, former employees, and even some regular customers, complaining that Angela had no right to fire him. His bitterness seemed to grow with each day. One afternoon, while Angela was meeting with her team to discuss new store improvements, she received a call from her lawyer. "Angela, we've received a formal complaint from Tom," the lawyer said. "He's claiming wrongful termination and threatening to take legal action against you." Angela felt her stomach tighten. She had expected some kind of reaction, but this was more serious than she had imagined. "What do I do now?" she asked, trying to remain calm. "We'll need to go over the details of the complaint," the lawyer explained. "But the good news is that your actions were justified. Tom had a history of complaints, and his treatment of you and others is well documented." Despite the reassurance, Angela couldn't help but feel unsettled. She had been so focused on the positive changes she was making, and now it seemed like her efforts were being challenged. But Angela refused to back down. She knew she had done the right thing by firing Tom. He had created a toxic environment at the supermarket, and his behavior needed to be addressed. Tom's complaints didn't stop there. He began reaching out to former employees who had left the store, asking them to support his claims. Some of them were willing to speak up, but many others were simply relieved to see the back of him. They were more than happy to speak to Angela and share their experiences of how difficult it had been to work under his management. As the weeks passed, Angela faced the pressure of dealing with Tom's complaints and the possible legal battle ahead, but she remained determined. She was not about to let someone like Tom stop her progress. With the support of her lawyer, she gathered evidence to prove that she had acted within her rights when she fired him. Angela knew that, in the end, it wasn't about Tom's complaints. It was about making the supermarket a better place for everyone who worked there. She also focused on the positives. The changes she had already made in the store were starting to show. Employee morale was higher, and customers were commenting on how much friendlier the atmosphere was. People were beginning to feel more comfortable coming in, knowing they would be treated well. Angela's vision for the store was starting to come to life, and that gave her strength to continue. Despite Tom's complaints, Angela was not going to let anything distract her from her goal. She knew that challenges were a part of the journey, but she had faced far worse in her life and had always come out stronger. She wasn't going to let Tom's bitterness stop her from turning the supermarket into a place of fairness, respect, and success. As the legal battle began to unfold, Angela remained focused on her long-term goals. She had come this far, and she wasn't going to let anyone stand in her way. The store was hers now, and she would make sure it became everything she had dreamed of. With determination in her heart, she took the next steps forward, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As the weeks went by, Angela felt a sense of accomplishment in her progress. The store was doing better, and she could see the changes in both the employees and the customers. People were talking about the improvements, and the store's reputation was slowly starting to turn around. Angela had worked hard to make things better, and it seemed like her efforts were finally paying off. However, Not everyone was happy with the direction the store was taking. Some of the longtime customers who had been loyal to the supermarket for years started to voice their concerns. They missed the old way of doing things. Some even thought that Tom, despite his harsh management style, had been a strong leader. They felt that the new changes were unnecessary, and they didn't agree with the shift in the atmosphere. One afternoon, while Angela was overseeing the new shipment of goods, she overheard a conversation between two regular customers. They were discussing the changes she had made and how the store seemed different. The customers were frustrated, and one of them said, "I like Tom's way of running things. It was more straightforward. This new atmosphere is just too much." Angela felt a wave of disappointment. She had worked so hard to create a store where everyone felt welcome and respected, and now some people were unhappy about the changes. She knew it wasn't going to be easy to make everyone happy, but hearing these complaints still stung. She had expected some resistance, but this was different. These were loyal customers who had been coming to the store for years, and now they were questioning the changes she had made. As the days passed, Angela found that her decisions were being scrutinized by more and more people. Some of the employees were on her side, supporting her vision for a more inclusive and respectful environment. But there were others who weren't so sure. They missed the old ways of doing things and felt uncomfortable with the new policies Angela was putting in place. It was clear that not everyone was on board with the changes, and that left Angela feeling uncertain. But Angela wasn't one to back down easily. She knew that change wasn't always easy, and that it took time for people to adjust. She had already faced so many challenges to get this far, and she wasn't about to let a few complaints stop her from doing what she believed was right. She had a vision for the store, and she wasn't going to let fear of opposition keep her from seeing it through. The next day, Angela called a meeting with the employees. She needed to address the growing concerns and remind them of the goals she had set when she first took over. As they gathered in the break room, she could feel the tension in the air. Some employees were still uncertain, but others were ready to support her. "I know that change can be difficult," Angela began, speaking calmly but with confidence. "But I want to remind you all why we're here. We're not just running a store. We're building a community. We're creating a place where everyone feels respected and valued. And that's something worth working for." There was a long pause before one of the employees, Sarah, spoke up. "I think you're right, Angela. It's been tough, but I see the difference now. I want to be part of this change." Angela smiled, feeling a wave of relief. "Thank you, Sarah. I know we all have different opinions, but together, we can make this place better." The conversation turned more positive after that, with more employees offering their support. Angela knew there was still work to be done, but she felt encouraged. She couldn't please everyone, but she could stay true to her vision. As the meeting ended, Angela walked through the store, her mind racing. She was learning to navigate the challenges of being in charge. Opposition would always be a part of the journey, but she had the strength and determination to keep moving forward. The store was hers, and she was determined to make it a place where everyone, employees and customers alike, could thrive. As the weeks passed, Angela's efforts to turn the supermarket around began to show real results. She had made big changes, and while it hadn't been easy, she could see that the store was slowly becoming a better place. Employees were starting to feel more comfortable, and customers were commenting on how friendly and welcoming the atmosphere had become. It wasn't perfect yet, but Angela was proud of how far they had come. One of the first changes Angela had made was to improve the way employees interacted with customers. She wanted the store to feel like a place where people were valued, not just customers, but also the people who worked there. She introduced new training programs for all the staff, focusing on customer service, teamwork, and respect. She wanted everyone to understand the importance of making customers feel welcome. Soon, the employees began to notice the difference. The store didn't feel as tense as it had before. The staff worked together more smoothly, helping each other out and sharing tips on how to improve service. Angela often stopped by the different departments, checking in with her team, asking for feedback, and offering support. She made sure they knew she was there to listen and help them succeed. The new customer service policies started to pay off too. People who had been shopping at the supermarket for years noticed the difference. A few regular customers even came up to Angela to thank her for the changes. "It's nice to see the place feel so much more welcoming," one customer said, smiling. "I used to come in and feel rushed, but now it feels like people care." These small victories kept Angela motivated. She knew there was still a long way to go, but these positive signs were all she needed to keep moving forward. However, not all the challenges had been solved. There were still a few employees who were struggling with the new changes. Some of them felt uncomfortable with the new customer service rules, and a few had a hard time adjusting to the team-focused approach. Angela didn't ignore their concerns, but she knew the road to change wasn't always smooth. She took time to speak with each of them individually, trying to understand their worries and finding ways to make them feel more comfortable in their new roles. Slowly but surely, most of the employees began to accept the changes. They could see that Angela wasn't just making rules for the sake of it. She genuinely wanted to create a better workplace. Some of them even started suggesting their own ideas for improvements. Angela listened to their feedback and made adjustments where needed. This was a team effort, and she made sure everyone felt included in the process. One day, Angela sat down in her office to review the store's progress. She looked at the financial reports, the customer feedback, and the employee surveys. The results were better than she had hoped. Sales were up, customer satisfaction had improved, and employees were more engaged than ever. Angela realized that the store was finally on the path she had always imagined. There was still work to be done, of course. No change happens overnight, and Angela knew that. But as she walked through the aisles, seeing the friendly faces of employees and hearing the positive comments from customers, she felt a deep sense of pride. The store was no longer just a place to buy groceries. It had become a community. It was a place where people felt respected, valued, and cared for. Angela had turned a place of negativity into a place of growth and opportunity, and she couldn't be more proud of what she had accomplished. Angela knew the journey wasn't over. There would always be challenges to face, but with each step forward, she became more confident in her ability to handle whatever came next. The future of the supermarket was bright, and she was ready for the next chapter of her journey. Angela stood at the front of the supermarket, watching as customers filled the aisles, chatting with employees and picking out their groceries. The atmosphere was brighter than it had ever been before, and the sense of community was undeniable. Angela couldn't help but smile. This was what she had worked so hard for. The store had become a place where people not only shopped but felt welcomed and respected, a place where everyone, from the employees to the customers, could feel like they belonged. Looking back on everything that had happened, Angela felt a sense of accomplishment. The road had not been easy. There had been countless challenges, long hours, and moments when she wondered if she was making the right decisions. But every obstacle had only made her stronger. She had taken control of her own future, and in doing so, she had transformed the supermarket into something better than it had ever been. The most rewarding part of the journey was seeing the impact her changes had on the people around her. Employees who had once been afraid to speak up now came to Angela with ideas and concerns. They knew she would listen. Customers who had once felt ignored now stopped by to thank her for making the store a better place. Angela had created an environment of respect, kindness, and equality, and it was clear that her efforts were making a real difference. But Angela didn't stop there. She knew there was still more to be done. The store was doing well, but Angela had bigger dreams. She wanted to expand her reach and help other businesses understand the importance of treating people with fairness. She wanted to become a role model for other business owners, showing them that success wasn't just about profits, it was about creating a space where people felt valued and heard. One day, as Angela was walking through the store, a customer approached her with a big smile. "I just wanted to say thank you," the customer said, holding up a bag of groceries. "This store has changed so much. I feel like I'm actually treated like a person when I come here, and that's something you don't see every day. Angela's heart swelled with pride. This was why she had fought so hard. This was the reason she had made the changes she did, to make sure that everyone who walked through the doors of her store felt important, regardless of who they were. As the months went by, the store's reputation grew stronger. More customers came in, and more employees joined the team, excited to be part of a business that prioritized respect and fairness. Angela knew that her vision was becoming a reality, and that realization made all the hard work worth it. Angela continued to meet with her employees regularly, checking in on their well-being and asking for feedback on how things could be improved. She wanted to keep the lines of communication open, ensuring that the store remained a place where everyone could contribute and feel appreciated. As she sat in her office one afternoon, reviewing the success of the store, Angela took a moment to reflect on how far she had come. She had faced adversity, dealt with opposition, and worked tirelessly to turn her dream into a reality. And now, as the owner of a successful supermarket, she knew that the journey wasn't just about business, it was about empowerment. She had taken what was once a place of negativity and transformed it into a space where people could grow, feel respected, and thrive. Angela smiled to herself, knowing that this was just the beginning. The future was full of endless possibilities, and she was ready to continue her journey. She had proven to herself that with determination and hard work, anything was possible.